Hello, fellow Econauts, and welcome back to our show. I'm here with my brother Ben, the Rocket Man, and today we are talking about the human landing system. That's a mouthful, I must say, but
Hey, Simon.
that's the topic
Hey, fellow
today.
Econauts. How's it going? Yeah, let's talk about the human landing system.
All right, okay. So, I remember that you had already problems with the human landing system in the previous episode. Now it's my turn. Okay, so
Yes,
we will we
we
will
take
try
shares here.
we will go with HLS. All right. Can you give me a little? Can you give us a little background of the HLS?
In the previous episodes, we have talked a lot about Artemis and moon landing, and now I want to round this up, or we want to round this up with the human landing system. The human landing system, in a nutshell, is a lunar lander delivered by SpaceX before Artemis 3 arrives at the moon, so that the Orion spacecraft can dock onto the landing system, on the human landing system, and bring the astronauts on the Artemis 3 mission to the lunar surface and back to Orion so that they can then return to Earth. Eventually, the human landing system will be combined with a gateway, which we also discussed in a previous episode, and therefore make a permanent opportunity and a stepping stone for future Artemis missions and probably also other missions to bring astronauts from a permanent space station around the moon to the moon and back to the space station.
So the applications are pretty much like you already said, to have the opportunity to send someone to the moon whenever it is possible, um, regardless of any kind of missions that are planned from Earth going to the moon. So the astronauts can stay there, yeah, almost indefinitely, right?
Well, they cannot stay indefinitely on the moon for now. For that, we
No,
have
no,
to build a
sorry. I
permanent
mean
base.
on
But
Gateway, and then
exactly,
basically
yeah,
going from the station to the surface whenever
yeah,
they have like optimal conditions.
yes. And I think the big advantage, which I want to point out here, is first now, and we talked about this as well in the past. Gateway has the opportunity to, while lunar missions are going on, that while that sort of happens, a resupply mission from Artemis to Gateway, from Earth to Gateway, can happen in parallel, which means we can now speed up the process and establish a sort of a quicker pathway and a highway to the moon, if you want, and also open up the collaboration with the private sector, which is, I think, extremely exciting. Um, because that shows now the opportunity for SpaceX and later Blue Origin to take part in um, in a research and pioneer mission for NASA.
If I'm not mistaken, SpaceX is actually delivering the human landing system to Gateway. Is that correct?
Initially, Gateway is not existent, so initially it will be just the human landing system orbiting the moon, but eventually it will merge with Gateway once that is being established. But the human landing system will be delivered before Artemis 3 arrives. So Artemis 2 will probably go on. Just as a reminder, Artemis 2 will just circumvent the moon and come back without a landing attempt. And Artemis 3 requires the human landing system in order to achieve the mission, which means now SpaceX has to deliver the human landing system. And I think the one importance I want to point out now, they have to deliver the human landing system with Starship. Now we had recently 2 Starship test flights, and now the next one will be very likely to be bring a Starship spacecraft into orbit where it needs to be refueled. And this is the big advantage really here. We're talking now about a super heavy launch vehicle, a spacecraft with full capacity of fuel, refueled in orbit around Earth, completely full with capacity, which can now be brought to the moon. And as we know, once we have left Earth orbit, Now the expenses in fuel are not that big anymore. So probably the human landing system can be used for a huge number of times, because the actual amount to go from lunar orbit to the lunar surface and back is small compared with the overall fuel expenses.
And that is showing also the importance of collaboration between SpaceX and NASA
Yes,
to include the private sector to have an incentive to actually get to the moon and to see like a significance for expenditure, and also for the for making money, making profit. Let's be honest
yes,
here, right? I
yes,
mean,
yeah,
if we have like a highway available, everything becomes much easier. We talked about that when we talked about Gateway. The first human landing system will be available at some point in the near future, and maybe a second one will be attached to Gateway at some point, allowing us to have like two missions running at the same time, and not necessarily at the same destination on the surface
exactly.
of the
Yeah,
moon,
exactly.
right? So which means that we have a broader spectrum available for us to explore the moon, right?
Exactly, yeah. And also to just point out the significance, SpaceX declared mission is to bring humans to Mars. I think that's very well known. Starship will be the vehicle to go to Mars. In order to do that, SpaceX requires also funding, not only from their own pockets, but also from other entities such as NASA. And demonstrating that they can actually use Starship to land on the moon, helping NASA in the process with a special version of their lunar lander, the human landing system we are just talking about, helps them in their achieving their goal as well. So it's not only making money. I think they got about like $3 billion for the whole project. It's also aligning with their mission to actually bring humans to Mars. And establishing a foothold on the moon is also helping on that mission to get to Mars. And just want to remind you that the Apollo mission, and especially the design for the Saturn V, was also, Richard von Braun was actually planning to go to Mars with that rocket. That rocket was designed in the big picture to go to Mars. And it would have if the space shuttle would not have replaced the mission, the Apollo mission. I also want to point out that SpaceX already, not only with the human landing system, already has an established economical relationship with NASA, because they do a lot of resupply missions to the ISS. So in a sense, it's not a huge difference conceptually to see, okay, now we have a further away destination, eventually it will be Gateway, to have resupply missions to Gateway, be it fuel, be it an updated human landing system. You mentioned there will be a second lander. Yes, there will. Blue Origin's already contracted to work on the second lander. It will not completely replace the first human lander, the human landing system. It will be working in conjunction. And as you exactly pointed out, now we have parallel missions. We can land at different destinations. We can have more astronauts remaining on Gateway while resupply missions going on. So it gets faster and faster. Will it happen every month? Certainly not. But I
Not at
guess
this,
everybody can understand.
not in
Not
the
at this.
very near
Yeah.
future, but I can
Yeah.
see that at some point, I mean, that's the future. Maybe in 100 years from now. I mean, if we look at our if we look right now back 100 years ago and see what kind of advancements we have already accomplished as mankind, and then look in the future, I don't think that it's too far-fetched if we can see at some point really multiple missions going to the moon, that there's, like you said, a highway from Earth to the moon, and even a lot of traffic in orbit of Earth and the moon, not necessarily launching from Earth to the moon directly, but having like a highway, so to speak, between an station surrounding the Earth orbit and to the stations surrounding the moon orbit, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And that's, as you know, heavy launch on Earth has already a bottleneck. That would be also a very important step to establish more heavy launch capabilities to resupply moon missions, to resupply Gateway, to resupply space stations like the ISS, but there will be others coming, like the Axiom space station. It is absolutely mandatory. This will reduce the cost for logistics and therefore open up an economy in the first place. There's already a lot of people looking forward to a lunar economy, specifically on the moon surface. Be it for tourism. I mean, that might be a bit far-fetched for us to think now, but as you just said, just look 20 years back, everybody had 30 years back, Nokia, the Nokia 5310 or something was it? Compare that phone with an iPhone nowadays. There's a world of differences, and I think it's not far fetched to say that we will
I
see
don't
a
think
lot
so
of
either. I don't think so either.
yeah,
I
no.
also think, and that's why we had like those episodes about space tourism and also space agriculture and space
Yeah,
manufacturing. There are certain benefits. I mean, if we look at Earth as an example, a lot of places do not have huge manufacturing available. What is their big selling point? They have beautiful beaches, they have beautiful views, they have everything done to support their tourism, their industry, right? And that is something that could very easily become like the next big thing, instead of going to a place on Earth, we go to the moon to look to Earth and have like this adventure for us. And as we also mentioned, manufacturing might be, for some reason, it might be cheaper to actually manufacture something on the moon instead of having like a huge industry here on Earth. There are so many things we don't know yet, and we will only know them when we actually go there and try
That's
it out,
exactly
right?
the point. Exactly the point. Exactly the point. We can only know some things if we try them. It doesn't mean that we have to, have a huge amount of try and error, but it means some things we need to test at the location where we need to be. And for me, the moon is definitely the next. It's strategic high ground. It's the stepping stone to Mars. It's an inspiration for people here on our blue marble. It's mandatory that we do this.
I
So
absolutely
yeah,
agree. Well, let's end it for today. We're already going into a direction where we can go
yeah,
on and go on again, like always. Well,
like
if
always, yeah.
like always, okay. If you like this episode, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already.
And hit the notification bell.
Exactly, hit the notification bell. All right, have a good one. Bye bye.
Bye.